Welcome to Nolan Knows. Hang on, it's time for the news. A lawmaker in Montana has introduced legislation to ban yoga pants, wants to make them illegal. My God, man, are you insane? I love yoga pants. On the right body, anyway. We shouldn't be banning yoga pants. In fact, I think if Michelangelo had seen a girl in yoga pants, David might not exist. The University of Massachusetts has decided they're not going to let some Iranians take some of their engineering and science courses. They're afraid that this will translate into nuclear weapons in Iran. Not like they couldn't get the courses someplace else. How about we just screen their backgrounds and let them take the class as long as they're not radical Islamists? A federal judge in Texas blocked President Obama's executive orders on immigration. This is a tough one for me because I like what the president wants to do, I just don't like the way he's doing it. It's kind of like the difference between seduction and rape. You might have the same end game, but the way you get there makes a difference. I think what the president is trying to do is circumvent Congress. I think he's going to lose this round, and I think he should. By the same token, I think Congress should fix the immigration problem. A St. Louis police officer is under fire because he turned off the dash cam during an arrest, and the victim, the person being arrested, is saying there was police brutality. I can't think of a good reason to have turned off that dash cam. Just on that alone, I'm suspicious of this police officer. The Ukraine has been forced to withdraw from a town that was apparently used for shipping. It's a convenient location for shipping, and they really got overrun by the Russians. There are people in this country who really want to help Ukraine. They really want to come to their aid, but the truth is, it's not our business. Keep our men and women home. Let them defend the United States, not the Ukraine. There are some photographs that have been leaked, photos of Cindy Crawford in lingerie, bare midriff, unretouched. I saw them. Actually, for a woman her age who's had children, she looks remarkably good. It must have taken a lot of hard work to get there or to stay there. Pat on the back to Cindy Crawford and the photographer, because this is such a great story. Because you would think with the internet, nobody would make the following mistake. Krispy Kreme had a little program going in Europe. They called it Krispy Kreme Club, the Krispy Kreme Club. And as you know, everything in Krispy Kreme starts with a K, so it turned out to be the KKK. All they had to do was a web search. My God, what a bunch of morons. Charles Manson is getting married. He's got himself a fiancée. There's a honeymoon you don't want to be on. Anyway, whoever it is that's marrying him, she's in need of a checkup from the neck up, and he's not too good mentally either. Oh, some women are desperate. Senator Rand Paul is contemplating launching his bid for the White House on April 7th. I like Senator Paul, maybe one of my favorite Republicans. The problem is, and I've said this before, he leans libertarian, but he's not libertarian. And everybody is going to say, Rand Paul, he's really a libertarian, and he's not. And when he acts like a Republican, libertarianism will take a bad hit. So a couple is in a movie theater, and the people behind them, first it's just the girls, start putting their feet up on the chairs in front of them, on the chairs that this couple are sitting in. Eventually, the guys that are with the girls get involved in this. They ultimately kick the guy in the head, and they actually challenge him to a fight. Big mistake on their part, because he stood up, turned around, said, "I'm law enforcement," pulled the gun out of his holster. He didn't point it at them, but he pulled it out. Under the circumstances, you know, it's probably a close call, but I think he did the right thing. If he'd left, then they would have just harassed somebody else. No charges were pressed. He didn't file charges against them. But it ought to be a real scare and a real lesson for those kids. Hey, it's time for Missed in the Media. Well, the president and his administration want new internet rules. They think somehow it's unfair, and they've come up with 330-some pages or 360-some pages, I've lost count, of new internet rules for the FCC to enforce. This is a solution in search of a problem. I don't know anybody who's upset with the internet. I don't know why anybody thinks it's unfair. I've never had a problem. Most of the people I've spoken with don't have a problem. But I do have a problem with the government getting involved in regulating the internet. Bureaucrats have this mentality that nothing can run without them, that they have to direct everything. They think if something goes wrong, somebody is not treated, or something is unfair, that they can fix it. Well, they can't. We're a country of 300+ million Americans with different needs and wants, and there aren't enough smart bureaucrats in all of Washington, D.C. to control the marketplace, especially not the internet. Let's not put this genie in a bottle. Let's let it keep growing and expanding. You know, the government regulating the marketplace reminds me of a story the late Harry Brown used to tell about a couple of women in Russia waiting at the state bread store. They're waiting in line for hours, and one of the two women starts to complain about how long it takes to get bread. And the other woman says, "You shouldn't complain. In the United States, they don't even have state-run bread stores. Leave the free market alone. We can do it better than the state." This segment is called If They Were Here. And my If They Were Here this week, that would be Governor Walker from Wisconsin. Governor Walker has been pretty successful in Wisconsin. His opponents, the Democrats, have tried unsuccessfully 3 times to beat him, and every time he has prevailed. He went after the school unions. He managed to save the schools millions of dollars, and the school unions and all the unions from across the country went to Wisconsin to rally and fight against him. They actually had a recall election after only 2 years in office, and he still prevailed. He finished out his 2-year term, ran for re-election. Again, the Democrats were really upset with this guy, really working hard to get rid of him. They looked under every rock. They did all the opposition research they possibly could, threw everything at him, and guess what? He got re-elected again. This should tell the Republicans something, because Wisconsin is a blue state. You've got a governor that's won there 3 times in a row. You've got a governor who's been researched, checked, backwards and forwards, inside and out, and they haven't found anything to hang on him. This makes him, I think, an ideal candidate for the Republicans. As a libertarian, I don't think he's an ideal candidate, but if I'm a Republican, I think Scott Walker's the guy. And I would, if he were here, encourage him to run. I think he has a much better chance than Chris Christie or even Rand Paul. I think the reason he's going to be successful is he has appealed to both Democrats and Republicans, plus all of that vetting that we just talked about, that makes him a candidate to deal with and to reckon with. The Republicans make a horrible mistake if they nominate Jeb Bush. I think the country has had enough of the Bush family, just like we've had enough of the Kennedy family. I don't think we need to have a 3rd generation of Bushes running for office. I don't think we need another candidate like Mitt Romney. I don't think we need another old school phony candidate. We need a real candidate who is really electable. And this guy can show his conservative bona fides. He has managed to cut spending. He has managed to fix jobs. He's been a successful executive. That's something we sorely need in this country, frankly. We need a good executive. I don't think Barack Obama is particularly good, and I think it's because he hadn't been tried or tested. But this guy has. If Scott Walker were here, I would tell him to run, and I will tell you, if he does, I think he'll win. It's time for the Squirrel of the Week. Our Squirrel of the Week is an inmate in Montana. I'm not exactly sure, I don't remember what it is that he did wrong, but he did manage to get himself arrested. And he subsequently charged the police with police brutality, and if you could have seen the picture of this guy's face, it looks like they beat the snot out of him. His eyes are black, his face is all puffed out. He took a real beating. But the police brutality charge didn't stick. See, what was going through his mind was, you know, everybody thinks law enforcement is cruel. We've got the Ferguson meme and all of these other ones about law enforcement being the bad guys. I can take advantage of this, and I'm going to press charges. I'm sure he thought he was going to get out scot-free if he could just make the case stick. Well, the problem is, the police didn't beat him up. They didn't lay a hand on him, frankly. The truth is, he beat himself up. Now, that sounds odd, and it's probably hard to imagine, but this guy made a fist, both fists, and started pounding himself in the head while he was in jail. How do we know this? The police have this thing called cameras. and they recorded the entire incident. They watched this guy beat the snot out of themselves. I can only imagine how hysterically funny it must have been to them when he then proceeded to press charges for police brutality. Hey, let's face it, law enforcement aren't perfect. Nobody is. But at the same time, they are not, by and large, trying to hurt everybody that steps in front of them. They're trying to protect us. They're the ones we rely on when we need help. They're the ones we call on when somebody's being raped or burgled or beaten. Law enforcement are pretty good. This guy is a squirrel. Frankly, I think he's nuts.